When you think about Bruce Willis, you probably picture the smirking main character who is always out to save the day, either in Die Hard, Red, or Tears of the Sun.
It's unpleasant.
No, it's just that the memory is unpleasant. It's a little painful.
Bruce Willis is a legend, no doubt, but even legends don't get along with everyone. He's the type that doesn't fake a smile if he doesn't like you, including his co-stars, both the ones he has worked with and those he hasn't worked with before.
Repulsive. I wouldn't have chosen to look like that.
From behind-the-scenes clashes to clashing egos, here are 7 actors Bruce Willis can't stand. Starting at number 7, we have Sybil Shepherd.
We didn't get along very well, Joe, I will say that.
Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd had a clash that everyone knew about back in the 1980s. It was on the set of the movie Moonlighting, where both stars were the main characters and had to maintain a good or even cordial relationship. But instead, what they had between themselves was far from friendly in any way. On screen, they had an electric chemistry, flowing dialogue, steamy tension, and that vibe that left viewers in anticipation. But off screen, they couldn't stand the sight of each other.
The book, you talk about how you and Bruce would actually sometimes fight before the scenes that you fought?
Yes, we had fights all the time.
Sybil even admitted in interviews that the working relationship between her and Bruce Willis was rough. Hence, it produced a rough working environment for her, and she was no longer comfortable. She even said that the tension was part of the preparation for a great movie to follow. And in a way, she was kind of right about this because they created absolute magic on screen.
We're ahead. You're kidding. The two of us? Together? Like Ray Milland and Rosie Greer in that awful...
On set, it was instant clashes between the two every day. The two were extremely stubborn and used to getting their way, so imagine not getting their way with each other. The tension got so bad, and according to the show's creator, Glenn Gordon Caron, Sybil was seemingly jealous of Bruce's rising career. There were days when the two co-stars wouldn't even speak to each other for the whole day, unless the cameras were rolling. Curtis Armstrong, another Moonlighting cast member, later proved the whispers true in his memoir. He plainly said that they hated each other. According to him, working on the set with those two together was like walking on eggshells since there was always one problem or another. As the movie turned out to be a hit later on, after all the episodes were shown, it just showed how Bruce Willis would endure working with someone he disliked so much to create a magical movie. Moving on, at number 6 we have Sylvester Stallone.
Come on, I love you, come on! Welcome back, Welcome back!
You guys.
Bruce Willis and Sylvester Stallone were once part of the same elite club of Hollywood actors who never failed to deliver jaw-dropping movies. They even worked together on the Expendables franchise, Stallone's action star reunion project that brought together legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jason Statham, and Jet Li. At first, it seemed like a perfect fit, but things quickly went south. The real tension began during negotiations for The Expendables 3. Bruce had appeared in the first 2 films in a small but memorable role. For the third, Stallone wanted to bring him back, but Willis reportedly demanded $1 million per day to film for 4 days. That's $4 million for less than a week's work. Stallone, who was already managing a tight budget with other difficulties, wasn't having it. Instead of keeping the disagreement behind closed doors, Stallone went straight to Twitter. He didn't name Bruce directly, but it was obvious who he was talking about. Yeah, he was that mad. It wasn't just the money. According to insiders, Stallone was frustrated with Bruce's attitude on set. He allegedly didn't bring much energy to the role, didn't want to promote the film, and acted like he was above the project. The fallout was quick. Bruce never returned to the Expendables franchise, and Stallone moved on without him. Harrison Ford stepped in to take over his role in the 3rd film. And unlike some Hollywood feuds that quietly fade away, this one left a mark. Stallone's public shade wasn't something Bruce ever responded to publicly, but the silence spoke volumes. Bruce Willis believes that actors should be compensated by their box office value, and he wasn't going to agree to anyone paying him less than what he's worth. They haven't worked together since. Enough about this, let's have a look at number 5, which is Kevin Smith.
I would just retire undefeated and let it be what it was. But I was never really happy with the 2 middle films. So.
Right.
Bruce Willis had worked with dozens of directors throughout his career, big names like Quentin Tarantino, M. Night Shyamalan, and Luc Besson. So when he teamed up with Kevin Smith for Cop Out in 2010, he probably expected a smooth ride. But that's not what he got. From Bruce's point of view, things were off from the start. Kevin Smith came from an indie film background, which was loud, loose, and heavily improvisational. Bruce, on the other hand, was a seasoned professional used to structure, discipline, and a certain level of seriousness on set. But Cop Out was anything but structured.
I tasted myself like 5 times one night. I didn't shit my pants at all.
According to multiple behind-the-scenes accounts, Bruce was frustrated by how chaotic the production felt. He reportedly didn't like how Smith directed, how scenes would drag, jokes were tossed around with no clear timing, and how Smith often smoked weed during filming. For someone like Bruce, who came from the old-school studio system, that just didn't fly. He didn't say much publicly, but his behavior spoke volumes. Bruce started distancing himself from the film. He avoided promotional interviews, didn't show much enthusiasm during press events, and didn't hide the fact that he thought the movie wasn't his best work. And then Kevin Smith started talking. After the movie came out, Smith took to podcasts and interviews blaming Bruce for everything from the on-set tension to the movie's bad reception. He painted Bruce as difficult, bitter, and uninterested. But Bruce never fired back. He didn't respond to the public jabs or try to defend himself. He stayed silent. But behind the silence, the message was clear. Bruce didn't respect Smith's approach to filmmaking. He saw it as unprofessional, and by the time Cop Out wrapped, he was done. It wasn't about ego. It was about working with someone who didn't understand his angle on filmmaking. He hasn't worked together with him ever since, and it's safe to say that he won't ever do that. The next actor on our list at number 4 is none other than Maura Tierney. In the mid-90s, Bruce Willis was set to star in and produce a movie that was far from the kind of movies he usually did. It was a romantic comedy called Broadway Brawler, where Bruce was meant to play a washed-up hockey player in a small town who eventually falls in love. It turns out that Bruce had an issue with the movie, and not just the movie itself, but the entire crew of the movie. Bruce Willis reportedly clashed hard with his co-star, Maura Tierney, who at the time was still rising in Hollywood. The word behind the scenes? He didn't like her. Not her performance, not her energy, not the chemistry. Nothing. And Bruce wasn't subtle about it. He had serious creative control on this project. Not just the star, but also the producer. And within just a few weeks of shooting, Bruce decided the film wasn't working. But instead of making changes to the script or something, he decided to take extreme steps. First, he reportedly tried to have Maura Tierney replaced. Then, when things didn't improve, he fired the director, Leah Grant, then the cinematographer, then the key crew members. It became obvious Bruce didn't want to continue unless the movie, and especially the cast, were reshaped to his liking. Disney saw the chaos, looked at the budget-bleeding money, and shut the entire production down. And at the end of the day, the movie didn't get the chance to see the light of day. Here's the thing, though. Disney couldn't allow Bruce to walk away like that after making them suffer losses. So instead of using him and escalating the whole matter, they decided to come to an agreement that Bruce would make 3 movies for them at a reduced rate. Bruce didn't mind this at all, just as long as he wasn't working on the same set with Maura Tierney, whom he didn't seem to like very much. Coming up at number 3 is Danny Aiello. Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello starred together in the 1991 movie called Hudson Hawk, which was a bizarre action comedy that Bruce co-wrote and produced. On paper, it should have worked. 2 seasoned actors, playing slick cat burglars in an amusing, over-the-top plot. But behind the scenes, things weren't nearly as playful. From Bruce's side, there were clear signs of frustration with Aiello throughout the chaotic production. Bruce had a very specific vision for the film. It was his project, and he was deeply involved in every detail, from the writing to the tone to the humor. He needed total control. And Danny? Danny had his strong presence, his instincts, and he wasn't just going to stay there and be treated like a less important person.
We got about 5 minutes and change.
5:32, swinging on a star.
You know, they invented something while you're inside. It's called...
People close to the production described frequent clashes over dialogue and screen time. Aiello, known for his short temper, wasn't shy about challenging scenes or suggesting changes. Bruce didn't like that. He wanted Aiello to stay in his lane and trust the process, but Aiello was vocal, and that caused friction. It didn't help that the film was quickly turning into a disaster. The script was being rewritten on the fly. The tone was all over the place. Studio executives were panicking, and instead of pulling together, Bruce and Danny reportedly grew more distant. While they kept it professional on set, the vibe between them soured. There are reports that Bruce refused to consider Aiello for any future projects after Hudson Hawk, and when asked in later years, he never praised Aiello's performance the way he did with other past co-stars. Bruce never said it outright, but his actions were loud enough. After Hudson Hawk, he cut ties with Danny completely. No praise, no follow-up roles, not even a passing mention in interviews. It was like Aiello got erased. For Bruce, the film was already a mess, because it turned out to be a box office failure. And in his eyes, Danny didn't help matters. Over to number 2, we have Demi Moore. Bruce Willis and Demi Moore were once Hollywood's couple. They got married in 1987, had 3 daughters, and were constantly in the public eye. But behind the glamorous red carpets and picture-perfect magazine covers, things weren't as sweet as they looked. Or at least, it was until it turned sour. Their marriage started strong, but by the mid-90s, cracks were showing. Bruce was a global movie star, bouncing between action roles and dramatic performances. Demi was just as busy and famous, especially after Ghost, Indecent Proposal, and G.I. Jane. But with fame came tension. Bruce was reportedly uncomfortable with how provocative and bold Demi's roles had become, particularly her scenes and powerful characters.
When we were asked to...
According to Demi's memoir Inside Out, Bruce wasn't just worried about her career, he flat out didn't support it. She wrote that Bruce told her he didn't think women should work after having kids, and that he wanted her to stop acting. That didn't sit well with Demi. She had worked her way to the top of Hollywood, and wasn't about to give it up because her husband was feeling insecure. This created a serious strain on their relationship. From Bruce's side, Demi's rising fame and increasingly edgy roles weren't just uncomfortable, they were threatening. He came from a more traditional mindset and reportedly didn't like the attention she was getting, especially when it painted her as a symbol. While he stayed silent publicly, those close to them said he grew distant, critical, and increasingly hard to be around. They separated in 1998 and officially divorced in 2000. For years, Bruce reportedly kept things cold. He wasn't seen publicly supporting her, avoided discussing her in interviews, and had little contact beyond co-parenting.
It was a family night out for Demi Moore, who made a rare appearance with all 3 of her daughters at the venue.
At one point, Bruce even moved to Idaho, away from the Hollywood spotlight entirely. Some say to clear his head. Others say to get as far from Demi's world as possible. For a long time, it was clear. Bruce didn't want anything to do with her, or the life they used to share. But over time, things got better, especially after Willis remarried and had more children. It seems like the storm had come to a halt as the two began co-parenting peacefully and were even spotted at times spending holidays with their daughters. Still, that doesn't change the fact that for years they were divided by some sort of wall created because of resentment. Finally, at number 1, we have Edward Norton.
I'm deputizing the little guy, boy with a patch on his eye, to come with me in the station.
Bruce Willis and Edward Norton worked together on Wes Anderson's quirky ensemble film Moonrise Kingdom way back in 2012. On screen, everything looked smooth. But behind the scenes, word is, Bruce and Edward couldn't stand each other. The tension stemmed from a personality clash. Edward Norton is known for being hyper-involved. He's the kind of actor who wants to direct scenes, rewrite dialogue, and obsess over details. Directors have called him intense and controlling. Bruce, on the other hand, is famously a no-nonsense actor. He shows up, does his job, and expects everyone else to do the same without fuss. According to reports from the set, Bruce quickly lost patience with Edward's overbearing style. He reportedly found Norton's constant back and forth annoying and unnecessary. Bruce liked to keep it simple, while Edward liked to complicate everything.
Hey guys, together please, this way. And guys, Edward, together.
Things got icy. They weren't shouting at each other, but crew members said they often refused to speak unless the cameras were rolling. Bruce allegedly skipped cast gatherings and wasn't interested in bonding offset, especially if Norton was involved. The real confirmation came later, when Moonrise Kingdom did press tours. The two rarely appeared side by side, and in interviews, Bruce barely acknowledged Edward at all. No praise, no stories, just cold professionalism. Wes Anderson later joked about managing personalities on that shoot without naming names, but insiders picked up on the indirect hint. Bruce didn't enjoy working with Norton. He didn't like the energy. didn't like the control issues, and made sure that the relationship ended with the final take. They haven't worked together since, and knowing Bruce's track record, that's probably not by accident. And there you have it, 7 actors Bruce Willis just couldn't stand. Whether it was because of their creative differences, clashing personalities, or just plain bad energy, Bruce doesn't fake it for anyone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.